Welcome to the Real Estate Reserve Podcast with your hosts, Jason Balin and Ian Horowitz.
What's up? What's up? What's up? We are live. We're live. June 12th, a little bit earlier than normal on a Friday, beautiful Friday morning. What's going on, Ian?
Nothing, man. I feel like I almost forgot how to do this.
Yeah, well, share away. Share away. We want to make sure we can get as many viewers and as many listeners as possible. If you're listening to this on, or you're watching this on either YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn, welcome. We have a really, really, really fun show today on a topic that I like to talk about personally. I love talking about capital and money and real estate investments in general. And if you're listening to this on our podcast, realestatereservepodcast.com, or on iTunes, welcome as well. It's going to be a good topic, and it's very relevant to all real estate investors. And we're gonna hop into that a second. If you're just tuning in for the first time, welcome. We have a lot of fun on this show. You are free to ask any question that you would like, and we typically hop on for about 30 minutes or 45 minutes. And, we chat, and it's very open, and happy to answer any questions that you have related to real estate investing and business and personal finance and money and marketing, things that we like to share and things that we preach. And we preach because we practice it every day in our businesses. So anything related to that, you can comment on this feed below. You'll be able to check out that. And if you have potentially a question that you think would be good for the audience and you want to hop on live with us on the show, we could potentially set that up for you as well, and we can share the link and you can hop on. So today's topic is the velocity of money, specifically for real estate investors. And I think it's a fun topic, and I think it's a very relevant topic, and Ian does as well. And it's stuff that Ian and I talk about. My partner, Chris Haddon, and I, and Ian and his partner, Dan, we talk about this stuff on a regular basis with a lot of our friends, our business partners, colleagues, staff, employees, because I think it's relevant. And there's so much misconception related to personal finance and real estate. And people don't realize real estate is an investment vehicle, and it's forgotten. And, in general, we're all very lucky and we're fortunate that we picked real estate investing as our place of business and the businesses that we want to open, because it's not just making money as real estate investors, but you're also investing in assets, And let me tell you, there's a very big misconception related to money you make through real estate. And let me explain. So there's typically two types of income. There's fee-based income and there's investment income. And so many real estate investors or real estate professionals get lost in the fee-based income over here, and they forget that they really need to be shifting their mindset and shifting their focus and shifting their money over to the investment income side of things. And we'll go and we're going to be going in depth on this and some good tips and habits. But keep in mind, real estate agents unfortunately fall into this trap a lot. Flippers fall into this trap a lot, and wholesalers fall in this trap a lot, and maybe appraisers and title companies and things like that. And let me explain why. You're working for your fees, right? And you work hard for those fees, and you deserve it, right? If someone wholesales a property, makes $100,000, excellent, all power to it. The more you can make on those transactions, the better. But that's fee-based income, right? You're getting taxed ordinary income or short-term capital gain, right? It's a high tax bracket on it, and you're not really investing in an asset. If you're buying a property to fix and flip, it's not really an asset that you're buying, right? It's just you're making a fee to do that. And hopefully it's a handsome fee. Same thing with real estate agents. So many real estate agents just sell properties and sell properties and sell properties and sell properties, but they're never investing in an asset. On the other side, you have the investment income of it, right? You have the investment income. So you buy a rental property, right? Rental properties aren't that sexy at the beginning. You make $300 a month in positive cash flow, right? It's not typically life-changing for $300, a month. But guess what? You buy a few, and you buy more, and you buy more, and your debt gets paid down, and it adds up. So same with private lending. You lend out capital to someone, you get an interest rate return. Those are called passive investments, right? It might be a little bit of heavy lifting on the front end in order to originate that deal and bring that deal in the door, but then it turns into a passive investment. So
Yeah.
Let's dive into that a little bit, Ian, because that's important to expand upon.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a few valid points, right? Like we flipped a lot of houses when we first got started because everyone looks at it, it's like, oh, it's the sexy money, it's the sexy money. But, one of the things that we noticed is that there's no like direct future. There's a way to build yourself out, but like in the grand scheme of things, it's the same grind over and over again versus having, assets that are paying yourself over and over again from the same capital that you've already committed. Whereas flipping real estate or selling real estate or whatever, a fee-based type thing that you're involved in, it's a rinse and repeat over and over and over again. One of the biggest wholesales we did, we smoked 6 figures on. We actually took that income and rolled it into a 7-unit apartment building that we still own today, right? So we very easily could have said, oh, we made whatever, $100,000 for, to say, okay, well, 25, 50 is going to the business and we're splitting the difference. Like that doesn't make any sense versus taking that capital and reinvesting it into yourselves. I think one of the most important things that me and you discussed, and it was something that you brought to my eyes, I don't know if you got it from somewhere else, is that no matter what you're doing, you need to look at yourself as the investor in the deal, right? It's very easy for me just to commit capital or take our own company money and just continually put it in over and over and over again and continue to buy assets. As we're approaching the 76-unit building, we're literally leveraging everything we have. But, we also need to be diligent to say that capital is just the same as investor capital, and it should be an investment vehicle for us, and you should pay yourself out on it. I think you did something pretty unique with your rental portfolio that I think some people should even consider about being your own bank, and looking at that and looking how the velocity of your money, it's not just leveraging up assets to create velocity of money. It's creating passive investments that continually grow and grow and grow and reinvesting that capital. That's the velocity of money that people like to talk about.
Yeah. I'm going to dive into that, and I'll tell people what we do kind of on our rental portfolio, to make sure that everyone who puts up capital into the deal is getting a return, even if it's owner equity, because it's got to be treated as private investor capital as well. And in general, I hope this isn't the first time that someone's heard this, what I'm about to say, but your money will always grow faster than your hard work. It's just that simple. Money grows so much quicker. Learn about compound interest, learn about how money grows in general in investment vehicles. But what we follow internally is we try to double our money every 5 years with capital. And that capital could be $500, $1,000, $10,000, doesn't matter what it is, right? But in order to get into an investment, we try to double our money in every 5 years. And let me tell you a really quick way to think about that when you're doing it, because typically it ends up being about a 14.5% interest rate in order to double your money every 5 years. So it's called the rule of 72. I'm not sure if that's new to people or not, but for instance, you divide the interest rate into 72. So for instance, what I do is I take 14.4 divided by 72, and that equals 5. So every 5 years, the money doubles. Or you can do it, you can do it the opposite way. You can say, I want to double my money every 2 years. So 2 divided by 72 or whatever, and ends up being 36% interest rate return, whatever the case is. We think 5-year turn time is doable, so we do it. And I mean, let's do the math together. Like, you would be so surprised what happens if you double your money, every 5 years. What happens to you 20 years from now, depending on how old you are. So let's say you have $100,000 to invest in deals, right? You take $100,000 in, let's say you're 20. Let's say you're young. Let's say you're 20 years old, right? You're 20 years old. You have for some reason you have $100,000 and you're able to invest, right? So by the time you're 25, you have $200,000. By the time you're 30, you have $400,000. By the time you're 35, you have $800,000, and by the time you're 40, you have $1.6 million, right? From $100,000, and again, that's not like actively doing stuff. That's passively doing stuff. If you can get something done for around a 14.4% interest rate return. Now, again, it doesn't have to be that. You can be like, okay, well, I have an 8% investment vehicle. Then you do it off that. But the mindset is kind of understanding that, if you have whatever 10 grand you want to start with, don't use that $10,000 to buy that used car or something, right? Whatever that case is, go buy that used car down the road, multiplying it by 10 of those exact same used cars, because you can do that. And, you understand that, and you kind of create these like games and cash flow games in your head. It makes a lot of sense.
And I think it's been hard recently, is watching, I guess not calling the sales guys, but watching some other people that we know, or just what you see on Facebook. It doesn't even have to be anyone is how people are reacting around the coronavirus. Oh, 0% interest on a car, I'm going to go buy one. Or interest rates are low, I'm going to go buy a shore house or a beach house or a vacation property. A lot of these things are going to come back and bite people in the ass. Think about it. Just like Jason said, that $100,000 that you tossed at a vacation home down payment, not only is it the $100,000 of capital, it's the $2,000 a month or $1,000 a month you're paying to service that debt on that place, right? So with that being said, what are you really losing? I mean, you're losing $115,000 in year one that you could have doubled, and that $1,000 every month that you can continue to reinvest at, it doubles every 5 years. Now your $1 million might be $2 million in that same time frame, because you're stacking cash. And look, it's hard to do. Don't think by any means me and Jason have it figured out. We just happen to have investment vehicles that allow us to place capital a little more regularly than most people, and a lot easier than most people. With that being said, I struggle with it personally. Sure, inside the business, we rock and roll. But personally, believe me, there's times that I'm like, oh, dude, I need that. I need this thing. You know what I mean? Rather than being like, okay, stay the course. Yeah,
but the mental mindset is you can get that thing, but you got to, if you have the mindset that you're going to get something for free, from free money instead of hard work money, it works, right? So like, for instance, let's say you want to buy something that's $10,000. Okay, well, let's invest that capital, take the dividends from that return, from that asset, or take whatever from the returns, put that automatically into a separate savings account, and let that business or that asset pay for it. It's that simple. And again, it's hard to do kind of at the beginning, but this is more a mental shift. And as soon as you do that, anytime I kind of think of it like, hey, I want to get that, or I want that, like, how do I bucket a way to do it?
Yep.
And you think like that, it works. I mean, a lot of, I don't know, it's interesting. And let me tell you, if you haven't read Warren Buffett's Snowball book, take a look at that, because Warren Buffett, if you look at, it's a lot about compound interest, and it's about how he was a kid, he realized the power of money growth, and how everything he looked at, the reason he was stingy on stuff is the stuff that he would look at, he'd be like, I don't want to spend an extra $100 on this, because I know to him, he looked at it as like, this extra $100 is going to be worth $10,000 to me in the future, because he could invest it.
I'm trying to pull up a graph here.
His net worth graph. It's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. Share screen.
Yeah, no, his net worth graph's crazy, because everyone thought he's been so rich for so long. But, again, you double $10,000 is $20,000. You double $100,000 is $200,000. But then you start doubling $1 million. Here you go.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. When he was a young guy, and then he really didn't really see this. Sure, don't get me wrong, $67 million or at age 47 is pretty cool. But like, look at this over the. Let me try to make
this bigger.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't pull up. Direct.
Hey, click on. Hey, click. Wait. You see those 3 buttons all the way to the right of your logo? Click on that.
3 buttons, the right of my logo.
Like you're logged into Google Chrome. All the way to the right. Yeah, click on that, and then just click the plus sign a few times.
Plus sign.
And then you'll make that bigger. There you go. There we go. Yeah. So, yeah, dude, it's wild. I mean, when I saw that, I was intrigued. I was intrigued about how that works. So let's go through a few tips related to investment vehicles in general and how to think of it like that, because a lot of Flipping a house is not an investment vehicle. You're making fee-based income, and it's taxed at the highest tax rate. So, it's not the best investment in general. Should you continue to flip houses to make income? Absolutely. Should you continue to sell houses to make income? Absolutely. Should you continue to wholesale houses to make income? Absolutely. But the difference is that's fee-based income. That's the money that you make as your job for the most part, right? That's your job to do that. And then you got to take that money and eventually move it over to the investment income column. And that's where a lot of people fail, or they're just not running fast enough and not doing it enough. I think when Zach Bryant was on here, he talked about every 5 properties he sells, he's going to try to buy one. I think that was him who said that, but that's fine. You take, if you ever listen to, or read finance books or personal finance books or money books in general, paying yourself first. Paying yourself first means you're investing in assets first. Typically it's asked backwards. Everyone says, cool, I'll pay myself, or I will invest whatever I have left over, which is the complete opposite of what it should be. For instance, you make $5,000, let's say you make $5,000 a month net or whatever. And it's like, cool, I'm going to pay $2,500 to my mortgage. I'm going to pay $500 for my car. I'm going to pay this to this, and I have this to this. I have $500 left over. I'm going to go invest that. That's wrong. It should be opposite, right? If I make $5,000 a month and I determine whatever my goal is of where I want to, what my next asset is that I'm going to purchase, right? Maybe it's $1,000. So I'm going to do $1,000 first. I'm going to pay that, and then the rest goes to household expenses and fun and things like that.
And actually, a really good book, I'll put that out there, is a book that I enjoyed, was The Banker's Code by George Anton. It's a really good book. It just talks about setting up your own banking system. Like everybody goes out and leverages the bank, but think about it. It's the same principle. If you could borrow money from yourself and pay yourself that same interest rate, why wouldn't you replace the money that you're using? Again, it's about velocity of money. So however you look at it, whether it's an investment vehicle, it's living debt free, it's borrowing money from yourself, you're having the wherewithal to reinvest this money over and over and over again. And ultimately, for everybody that says, we have a really close friend of ours, he talks about leaving his job. And I'm like, hey man, like, you really think you leave your job? But he's slowly but surely adding assets one at a time. And over the past few years, he brought us an apartment building out in West Virginia. I think he's getting really, really close. Hopefully he's enjoying his golf weekend this weekend, Pete, wherever the heck you are. But anyway, the simple fact that, he's slowly but surely adding assets one at a time, then found a home run deal, right? And then he's still slowly but surely adding one deal at a time. Next thing you know, in 10 years, boom, he's gone. I got a really cool story. So my in-laws, for those of you that don't know, they sell and service power equipment, like for landscapers up in just outside of Philadelphia. And how I got started in real estate is that there was a guy that would always come in. He would buy a new mower every year. And he'd buy a new mower every year. And one year he wasn't there. He said, hey, man, what happened to you? Well, I was buying one house at a time for the past 30 years. And he's like, why am I doing this anymore? I can just retire. I have these 30 houses. They're all paid for in cash. I don't need to work anymore. I sold my landscaping company. I'm not working that hard. And I got these 30 houses to support my lifestyle, So that's pretty cool just to see how, like, even if it's just making one small purchase a year or buying that one stock or one real estate asset, whatever it may be, and taking the time and making a conscious effort to do that, it pays off in the long run. Not that I want to keep yapping here, but like, there's a lot of guys in the fire department that we have an option to put money away in a retirement program. And I can't believe how many guys don't put any money in there. And they're all like, oh, we're just going to live off the pension. No, dude, like, if you just simply put in $25 a pay in on your very first pay and slowly but surely increasing that over time, you should leave the fire department a millionaire. Like Dan preaches it all the time. Just those simple things and taking those conscious efforts to make a little difference in your lifestyle will pay off massive dividends over the long term.
Yeah, and I mean, we're all fortunate that we're in real estate investing. Real estate investing is the easiest. Because in general, the majority of the projects that we buy are assets if you do it the right way. Again, if you're just tuning in, wholesaling's fee-based, selling real estate as an agent's fee-based, flipping a house is fee-based. But there's so many other ways, long-term holds, lending money, whatever the case is, it makes sense. So I'll tell you kind of what we do inside our rental portfolio or anytime, anything in general. So typically, like, we'll get bank leverage. We'll put up some of our own capital, and then we'll have, sometimes private investor capital as well on some of these deals. And every dollar is accounted, right? Like, our money's not just treated as equity. Our money is treated for, treated just like everybody else's. So for instance, let's say the bank debt is worth, 5%, the private capital's 10%. Private capital is 10%, and then like we want 12% on our money. Well, all that stuff's taken in consideration, right? Like, if we're dispersing funds, everything's got to get dispersed kind of accordingly. And it's a fair way to do it if you have a business partner as well. Because, for instance, let's say, you own a company 50-50 and you put up 40 grand, your business partner puts up 20 grand. Well, your 40 grand should be getting a return on that as well. Like, everyone should be getting a return. All the capital that's put into a deal should get a return. When we do joint ventures with either if we're the lender or if someone else's, puts up some of the capital, there's always a preferred return for that capital that comes in, right? And then everything's split afterwards. So, and I know a lot of people don't think about it like that, but that's where it is. Like Ian said, and I met George at an Infusionsoft conference years ago. And his book's been out for a long time, and I think he might actually have another book, but he does private lending in California. So we have a lot of stuff in common. And, I've talked to him about stuff, and I agree. Like, it's kind of a simple principle, but like, that's the case. Like, if you're putting up capital somewhere, you need to take, what's the term? Like, you need to take that seriously as real capital. Like, you need to value capital. And this is the one thing I see all the time. It's the dumbest thing in the world. So I know a lot of real estate investors that buy houses for cash, right? They buy houses for cash, and then they get their return, right? And they look at the return, and it's like, oh, cool, we got a so-and-so return. And it's like, you got a so-and-so return, but, but that's because you bought it in cash and you didn't value your own capital that you put in there. You buy a property, and you're all in at 100 grand. Let's say you buy it for cash and you sell it and you make $10,000. It's like, cool, I made a 10% return. And it's like, yeah, but that's an active investment,
right.
In general. And exactly. They don't realize they forgot to value their time or their money as well. You're valuing your time and you're valuing your money. So in general, think about it like this. There's active investments and there are passive investments. If you literally just invest money into something and it's completely passive and someone else is operating it and doing everything, you're just investing the capital, and you get whatever, 5%, 6%, 8%, 10%, maybe like that's a good return, right? In general for passive. But if you're the active investor, you should be getting the teens or the 20s or the 30 or maybe even like an infinite return on some of those deals. If you're putting up, I don't know. It's and this is stuff that's really and I've been finishing up Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant book, and I haven't really followed that much stuff from Robert Kiyosaki. And I mean, I understand his principles and I don't disagree with them. And, obviously I read Rich Dad Poor Dad years ago when, I just got into being an entrepreneur and a business owner and a real estate investor, 18 years ago, whatever that case is. But, and I get it, but, it popped up and I was like, yeah, I'll take a look at some of his principles because it's newer stuff. And it kind of reiterated a lot of things that we've been doing inside our business and a lot of things that I know that friends of ours and business acquaintances of ours aren't doing, which is simple. And, investing in those assets. And I mean, listen, you're a flipper, you buy 5 properties a year and you flip all 5 of them and you make 150 grand, right? Good. But where's the money that you kept? Where's the money that you saved? Where's the money that you reinvested? That's the thing that doesn't happen.
I think we should challenge everybody that's watching or that's going to listen to this is make a challenge. And I'm not trying to stab people. I apologize. It just happened to be next to me. But I say we challenge everybody that on the next real estate deal that they value their capital. It doesn't matter if you're buying it completely in cash and paying yourself. Let's be easy on the first one. I challenge you to pay yourself 8% on your capital before you go and pay yourself any profits and see what your returns look like overall. I don't care if you're buying the whole thing in cash or if you can get the whole thing completely financed and you only got to put up $5,000. Pay yourself 8% on that capital, separate it, put it in a different bank account, and watch that money grow. Next thing you know, you're going to have more and more cash. And then think about it. If you're paying yourself 8%, but you're going to your friends and family or hard money lenders or whoever and paying anywhere from 12 to 14% or whatever it may be, think about the cost savings that you just made for yourself just by doing that simple little step. So we challenge everybody. If anybody has questions on how to do it, feel free to reach out to me, Ian at Equity Warehouse or Jason at hardmoneybankers.com. We'd be happy to help show you how to set it up. But again, any dollar that you put in there, value it at 8% and put that money in a separate account and watch what happens. That's my challenge.
Yeah, it works. And I mean, everyone knows from experience who's invested in assets before, any asset, they grow. They grow over time, especially cash flow assets. I mean, listen, you got to buy one rental property and then you just keep buying and buying and buying and buying and buying and more. And, having, one of the things when I think Chris and I wrote that our first book, The Whiteboard, one of our topics or one of our chapters was called The Snowball Will Save You, which it does, right? Because every year you buy a new rental, then you buy another rental, and then another rental, or you invest in a note, or you do this, and then all of a sudden, that outperforms everything. And then for something, let's say there's like a catastrophe or a disaster kind of in your life, and you lose your job. Well, all of a sudden, now you have this type of income to rely on. I remember one thing, and I'm not going to mention who stated this, but I remember, an entrepreneur friend of ours. His mom once gave him a hard time shortly after he started his business. And she was like, that's way too risky to start your own business or to buy a piece of real estate or whatever. He's like, well, what do you mean? Well, that's way too risky. You need a stable job. You need this. And he looked at his mom straight in her face and said, you know what, Mom? Your job's way too risky. You don't control that. You have one source of income. You lose that job and you're out. I'm gonna create my own business, and then I'm gonna buy assets and then potentially create other businesses that have multiple income streams. And I'm not gonna rely on somebody else to do that. So, and he's right. And like, he didn't say it in a mean way or anything. It wasn't bad. And again, part of it was generational. But that's what it is. And let me tell you another quick story about, two quick stories and I have a lot of these stories because, our lending business is an investment vehicle, right? And, we have a lot of high net worth individuals who lend money, through us. So I hear kind of where they came from and stuff like that. And, how obviously it didn't happen overnight. But the first story is I remember we were maybe like a few years into business, and we were a few years into business, and we were prepping our 1099s for our private capital investors. And one of our investors had about $2 million deployed with us, in deals. And I remember Chris and I looking at his 1099, and it was, let's just say in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we're like, what the crap? He was like, this dude made a few $100,000 passively. Didn't know what deals he was in. Didn't care what deals he was in. He invested $2 million. $2 million is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. But that just spit out a few $100,000 a year in passive income to have zero involvement in anything. And I'm like, being the lender and being, the capital source and using your own money is so important, right? So that's the first one. The second story I think is actually even better. So years ago, we had built this relationship with these two older gentlemen that were government workers, and they both worked for the government forever, and they had recently retired, and they put in their tenure at the government, and they were, they were smart, successful people, but there was obviously a cap of what they can make. So let's just say, $100,000 or in the low hundreds or whatever that case is, right? Like there was obviously a cap. Well, they were, they were savvy people. So, every year they would save money. They would invest in a business. They would invest in a rental property. They'd buy an apartment building. They invest in a note, whatever. And it wasn't a ton of money, but it didn't need to be, right? Because you start small and it works your way and it works its way up. So, at this point they had just retired from the government, and these guys each had a net worth, well over 10 mil each, well over 10 mil. I don't exactly know what, and they invested and they're only making, whatever their normal salary. And in general, they were like, that was the game that we played. We used we used our income that we had in our normal business or our normal job at the government. We work hard from 9 to 5. And then, on weekends and nights and stuff like that, we play the cash flow game, and we figure out where to invest stuff, and we invest this, and we're in this business, and they own everything. They literally owned so much stuff. Talking to them, they had so much capital. They did a deal with us. It was like a $1.3 million loan that they were involved in. They would lend their own capital to other people. They own apartment buildings. And that's what it was. And that's kind of early on. That's kind of when I kind of learned that it doesn't matter what business you're in. And a lot of people shouldn't quit their day jobs, especially if they enjoy them in general. Use that as kind of your backbone and your, facilitator of capital to bring it in, and then utilize that to invest in other things. I mean, so many people I talk to, real estate investors that are flipping houses, says, I'm almost there. I'm almost ready to quit my job. And it's like, you don't need to quit your job. If you want to, you can do that, but you kind of got to start over again and build that up again. It's, if you enjoy it and you like it, stick to it. I remember one of the things in his Robert Kiyosaki book, he was talking about how his sister, that he was super proud of, was a nun, and she enjoyed it and she didn't get paid for it. But, she did that because it was her hobby and she was passionate about it, and she enjoyed it. And she had other investment vehicles that were paying all of her household bills and everything else. She didn't have to worry about money. So it made a lot of sense.
Yeah, man. And again, I challenge everybody, even if you're not doing real estate, is to try to find a few grand or a few $100 and find a place to invest it. There's plenty of places out there, whether it's in real estate, whether it's in like lendingclub.com, something along those lines, and find a way to slowly but surely invest it. Think about it. You get $5,000 in at 10%. That's most people's car payments nowadays. And that's what I'll leave everyone with. Is challenge you to find how you can value your money and increase your net worth every single day. You have any questions? You want to discuss this further? You want to come on here, discuss it? Reach out to me, Ian at equitywarehouse.com and Jason at hardmoneybankers.com. You got anything else, Jay?
No. I mean, I can go on and on with this topic because it's something that I just think about, pretty regularly. I think it's important for people to think about it like this, because it's it's a mental mind shift. And it was, even though a lot of this stuff in this Robert Kiyosaki book that I'm finishing up now, is stuff that we all know, it's good to get reiterated. And he's so right about the mental side of it. It's like, oh yeah, I'll just he talks about how your primary residence isn't an asset, how everyone's just constantly in debt. And, some of the stuff I agree with, but some of the stuff I don't agree with, but a lot of the stuff I do agree with. And it's true. And it's like, it's all mental. It's like, you gotta be disciplined you gotta be disciplined to do that. It's, hey, I'll just take this extra $1,000 instead of investing it right now. $1,000 isn't going to do much for me. It's only going to spit me out, $15 extra a month or $10, whatever it is. And it's like, who cares? It's something. And it grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. So, I would say, action items like you said, Ian, is that challenge is good. Pick up the Snowball book, and just start reading personal finance books. And they clearly, they clearly work. I mean, it's good. We're all in real estate investing. We all have an upper hand compared to other people because we understand real estate investing. So just make sure you understand the investment side of it and not necessarily the fee-based side of it.
100%. We'll catch you guys next week. We should be back to having some interviews, and we'll see you guys next week. Luckily, I have an appointment at 11:30. Otherwise, Jason would continue to talk for hours about this topic, which is a good thing. But we'll see you guys next week. I believe Sean Magner is going to jump on here. We're going to discuss how he has been growing his business and go from there.
All right. Later on. See you guys next week.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Reserve Podcast. Do us a favor and like, comment, and share our broadcast. It helps the algorithm and helps us spread the word too. Till next time,